Good evening, Uganda, and welcome on The Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. The parliamentary regional meetings are on, and they have begun with Gulu in northern Uganda. Tonight we'll be analyzing the pros and cons of a parliament sitting out of Kampala. What are the benefits, and at what cost is it going to be for the taxpayers of Uganda? And my guest this evening, I have a police and governance expert, Mr. Bernard Chankara, and also a security expert, Dr. Atia Tolet. Once again, gentlemen, welcome to the show. Mr. Bernard Chankara, thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, sir.
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me.
Dr. Tolet Atia, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
As you may
again.
be aware, or maybe I should let you know, I have two distinguished sons of northern Uganda, and so the Parliament of Uganda is on home turf. I don't know whether you've been following, but I don't know whether you think that's a good thing. But let me begin with you, Mr. Chankara. Of course, a lot of money is going to be spent on this. Yeah. When Parliament sits in your home city, of what benefit is it going to be better than what would have happened if members of Parliament sat in Kampala?
Thank you very much, Patrick. I think Parliament sitting in Gulu or anywhere outside the original parliamentary building, it's not a new concept. Yeah. We have seen Parliament sit in other countries. In Greece, for example, Parliament has sat in different cities. Even in the UK, before they moved to Westminster, they sat in different cities. So it's not very alien. In Africa here, we've seen South Africa sit, South African Parliament sit
in Cape Town.
In Cape Town and then Johannesburg. So the idea of Parliament sitting outside its original parliamentary building, it's not absolutely a new concept globally. Now, for me as a person, I must accept that it feels good at a personal level that I see Parliament sitting in Gulu. Where Parliament is sitting as a person, I once lived there as an internally displaced child. Yeah. So to see Parliament go there, sit and debate national issue, to me, I feel a little bit joy.
Mr. Chankara, there's going to be Ugandans who are going to ask themselves, what is it that members of Parliament are going to discuss in Gulu or in northern Uganda, yes, that actually cannot be handled in Kampala because it comes with a financial bill?
Exactly, that is where I was just about. So for me, as a personal level, it is okay that government would sit anywhere that they think they can deliberate. However, when you look at historically where Parliament have sat outside its original jurisdictions, the modus operandi have been quite a little bit different. In other cases, they have referred it as parliamentary outreach. Yeah, and so the modus operandi, it determines whether Parliament's effectiveness, whether they sit either in the parliamentary building or within the different places that they think that they would be able to deliberate. So for me, if Parliament moves from Kampala here and sits in Gulu, the modus operandi must be completely different. Now, where you find Parliament move from Kampala to Gulu with the same bureaucratic processes of parliamentary procedures, then it is not referred to as parliamentary outreach. Ideally, when Parliament moves out of the parliamentary building, it must be sort of a parliamentary outreach.
So are you suggesting that when they are in Gulu, the rules of engagement should change?
Should be completely different, because that is where the innovation is. And for me, what I've seen Parliament has done in Gulu, it's completely the same. It's ideally they should have remained in Kampala and the debate from here. There is no need to move it to Gulu. But if they have moved to Gulu the way they have, and in any case they're going to move from Gulu to other different, the modus operandi should be different.
Dr. Tolet Atia, you must be very happy because members of Parliament
could listen to more to the communities.
Are sitting in Gulu, not far away from your home, where you actually come from, and you can relate. Of course, they're going to leave some money in the local economy. You know, they're sleeping in hotels, they're buying food in Gulu, and many other things. So money will be left in that economy. That's a benefit for the local residents of Gulu. But what else?
Yeah, thanks, Kamara. You see, it's exciting, especially the euphoria, the color, the pomp that Parliament comes with. I mean, I was looking at Kaunda grounds, a ground I know very well, a ground many of us
have played football there.
Played football, have very nostalgic feelings about. And now today, boom, there's a Parliament. That excitement, unfortunately, only stretches that far. I want to borrow this analogy I had severally from one of my key mentors, may his soul rest in eternal peace, Dr. Rahman Tajuddin, one of the greatest Pan-Africans and activists, human rights activists and political scientists ever, per class. He's always told me, look, in this journey, always strive in this thinking of governance that you are part of the agenda making. Because if you do not participate in making the agenda, then it does not help to participate. Because then, whatever will be discussed will never be your issues. And this is it. I don't want to pretend about anything. I'll tell you, Northern Uganda, vice Parliament of Uganda, how do they relate? The Parliament of Uganda legislates for Uganda and should do that discreetly with equitability, equity, and a humane face. Here we have Northern Uganda with a very unique case, because the Northern Uganda we are talking about is a region that was caught up in conflict for over 20 years. 1987, to the silencing of the gun, actually active war by the UPDF and its agencies came to an actual stop in 2007.
Yeah. Yes, as a journalist, I've covered that war
yes.
in northern Uganda. I was embedded with the UPDF in southern Sudan, Imatong Mountains, across the Retenya Hills, and went deep into Aru Junction and areas of Rikwamba. But it's been almost 20 years since the guns have fallen silent.
That is what I want to come to. I was trying to build on the point of setting the agenda. Northern Uganda has questions it is asking to this country, as part of this country. Those questions have not been answered. However, I must concede that several attempts have been made, and we must commend government, particularly when it opted to finally go into the peace talks with the LRA in Juba in 2006. And that does not mean that there had not been previous attempts. But like the English say, the taste is in the pudding. The war ended.
The war,
just a minute. The war ended. The guns went silent. But the questions have not been answered. We need to get the issue of Northern Uganda on the agenda, urgently. The closest we have come to after the Juba talks, which culminated into the Juba Agreement, which was signed on the 19th, the last one was signed on the 19th February 2008, including the Annex AAR. Right now, where should we be? The only piece of legislation that can get us going is the element of the transitional justice policy. If this parliament had anything for us, particularly yesterday on the order paper, the transitional justice policy was passed in 2019.
What do you want that to entail?
That is the only vehicle that can deliver the goodies we are asking for.
So let me come to you, Mr. Bernard Chankara. There's been a special focus on Northern Uganda, NUSAF 1 and NUSAF 2. We talk about big money, more or less like a Marshall Plan of sorts, to help revitalize, give some kind of a jump start to Northern Uganda, considering what you've gone through. Isn't it prudent that Parliament should actually be trying to, to be laser focused on how NUSAF has helped the people of Northern Uganda, to follow all the money, so that we know the money that taxpayers' money of other Ugandans and donors that went to Northern Uganda, what has it done?
Patrick, post-war recovery, it's not an event. It is a process. My biggest problem that this government has done is not to look at post-war recovery holistically. Yes, my colleague has said that the guns have gone silent. And I've heard in many occasions that, of course, now we have peace. But you know the definition of peace, if we are to narrow it down, peace does not necessarily mean the absence of war. Of course, we might not have war, but there are quite a number of issues that needs to be addressed. There are issues of land issues, land insecurity, there are human rights issues that needs to be addressed. So post-war recovery has to be holistic. Without it, it cannot be achieved. Yes, Parliament has injected a lot of money. Government through Parliament has injected a lot of money. The PRDP, NOSAF, and several of these poverty alleviation initiatives. But you see, in post-war conflict, it is important, my brother here will tell you, that you must understand the indigenous behavior and the cultural practices. Yeah. That integration, it is extremely important, because that is how you can get effective post-conflict recovery. And without that, sort of we will see what is happening in Northern Uganda.
But gentlemen,
you will
really?
pour in money.
Yes.
You will pour in money. And some of the money, by the way, don't even reach the hands of the local
So let me pose this.
Yeah.
If government has put money through NUSAF, they have put money through PRDP, they have put a minister who's supposed to be laser focused on Northern Uganda, in most cases a minister from Northern Uganda. You have local leaders in the area. Considering even the budget of Uganda, what else should they be doing, really?
I think, like I said, we must pay attention to the behavior pre-conflict, during conflict. Then we can manage the post-conflict. I think government in many ways have ignored the pre-conflict behavior in their Chole communities. And that is why you see the NOSAF and these other projects seems in many cases have failed, because the appreciation of the indigenous practices within the Chole community, or in the even greater north, or even Lango, or even Karamoja, or West Nile, that the parts that were affected. I think paying attention to the indigenous practices have not been adequately integrated within the current post-conflict recovery.
So I think I've lost you there, because what do you mean indigenous,
You see,
for example,
you see,
one of the ways of trying to resolve the conflict in Northern Uganda, or the people of Northern Uganda, try to use Mataput as a justice system to restore peace, so that people, has anybody come in to distort your culture or misunderstand you?
Dialogue is one element. Mataput is one element of conflict resolution, which is okay. Yeah, but when you're looking at post-conflict recovery, more attention should be given to economic recovery, okay, and then two, socio-economic recovery. If you're looking at economic recovery, there are multiple issues that needs to be handled, okay. I earlier on mentioned the land question. The land question must be addressed. For example, I can tell you that when government instructed the Chole population and the northern population at large, that let's go back to our ancestral homes. What people did, majority of people went and resettled alongside the roads and did not go to the traditional ancestral homes. You see, and the sentiments that we get from that is that People settled along the roads ideally because they wanted to continue, that if you go far away, you might not get the free services that government has been giving you. And so they settled and they left their ancestral land unattached. And that is why there is a lot of outcry on the land issues. Yeah, people settled strategically thinking that. So the behavior of people during conflict, remember, this is a community that got used to receiving aid for free and government support for free for 20 years. That is a full generation.
Let me come back to you, yeah. Dr. Atia, and I'm posing the same question because, you know, there were more or less like a Marshall Plan, that's what I think, that was supposed to be super focused on Northern Uganda because of what Northern Uganda went through, including a minister whose job is to look at Northern Uganda, and you have members of parliament and the local administration there. Really, that should have been something that should jumpstart Northern Uganda. Of course, you've lost 20 years, but that is a focus that has been put on your region. Where are the dividends?
Look, Kamara, and I want to say this categorically, and I'll emphasize some of the key points. There are about 3 elements to the northern conflict. And one of them that I want to start with is the geographical location of Northern Uganda. You see, we have handled the conflicts of Northern Uganda in a very shambolic manner. I don't know if you've read Mamdani's book, Intellectuals in the Marketplace.
Yeah. Yes.
If I'm to vulgarize that title, we now have bureaucrats in the marketplace. Uganda is a very interesting society. One of my friends, senior judge, refers to it as an indolent society. We are very short of memory. You see, unfortunately, and one of the biggest challenges to this problem is situating it, starting with the geography. Because remember, by the way, the conflict of Northern Uganda as a whole, if you take it from Kamdin, stretch eastwards through Lango and the borders of Teso.
Abim.
Then you cross through Makshon straight to Arua, Koboko, Yumbe.
Yeah.
And then you have the bits of what you'd call southwest, Hoima, Bunyoro, because contextually, when you talk about displacement, people have been thrown out of their ordinary places of abode. Where did they go? They did not come to Kampala.
Yeah.
Yes. So they were in Bunyoro,
Yeah.
and places like, they were in Aluri, in Pakwach, in Jonam. Some of them went as far as Arua and Koboko. There was a conflict that predated the Acholi conflict. In fact, there have been 2 major conflicts. The first conflict was the conflict that shrouded the fight around Idi Amin's dictatorship.
Yeah.
It saw thwarts of West Nilers thrown into Eastern Congo and Southern Sudan. Unfortunately, these are places that are not even developed. And up to today, I made a similar case when I was meeting officials of the British government at the DFID headquarters about 15 years ago. I took a very simple analogy. A child who was born in 1978, 1979, in Arua, Koboko, Moyo, that child or that generation, because if you say 20 years, 1980 to 2000,
yeah,
hardly has an education.
Hardly does.
Because they were displaced in Eastern Congo without an education, they were displaced in Southern Sudan. Later on, we had the insurgency jump to Teso, or bits of Teso. That was the concentration area. Before we now have the Northern
Uganda, the LRA.
The LRA.
Yep.
Lakwena, then the LRA. Now, When you read our policy documents, particularly the history and contextualization, they fall short of all these segments. Now, all these conflicts, in a very summarized way, introduced 3 categories of people. And starting with the most immediate, which is the Acholi conflict. 1, there is a category of people called the internally displaced. There is a category of people called the children born in war.
Yeah.
There is a category of people called displaced persons. If you went to Acholi, you'll find Lukbaras, who took off from 1980 conflict, either in Boyale, in Acholi, or in Lamu. If you went to Arua or Lukbara, you'll find the same. So, coming back to your policies, what are they doing? When NUSAF started, I think probably it was not more than 7, 8 districts. Today, if you looked at the list of NUSAF, NUSAF 2 or NUSAF 3, you'll find districts called Kikube, Chankwanzi. Which contextualization is that?
Now,
and that's why
we've been talking people scattering,
yes,
even out of Acholi.
Yeah, now you see.
They came up down to Weyale, to Kiriangongo.
I'm trying to respond to your point, because
the host community of the displaced people was also affected. But gentlemen, hold on to your points, because we're going to take a break, and on the spot, we'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara, and my guest this evening, I have Dr. Tolita Teya, a security expert, and Mr. Bernard Chankara, who is a policy and governance expert. And we are discussing the regional meetings of Parliament. Now they have begun with Gulu, and they're going to be there for the next 2 days. But let me, earlier I alluded to the issue that money will be left in the local economy. We are told about 5 billion will be spent in Gulu on Parliament sitting there. But there's a possibility, Mr. Chankara, that this money could still come back to Kampala, because probably members of parliament are staying in hotels owned by people who are in Kampala. Probably members of parliament are also taking fuel on fuel stations owned by people in Kampala. And I'm sure even the person who has done the tents and all these things, maybe is not even a local guy from Gulu. Doesn't that sort of jolt you?
I think
that money could come back to Kampala?
I think it is to assume that taking Parliament to Gulu or any other place will empower the local people financially. I think it's more of a rocket science, because most of these investment, just like you said, most of the owners are actually Kampala based, and they use Gulu as just a hometown. Yeah. So it is true economically in terms of the money will go to Gulu and comes back to Kampala. Politically, government may score points. I want to comment on that. Politically, government will score points because we are coming from a background where Parliament has been struggling with its public relations issues. You're aware of the corruption scandals, allegations that has made around Parliament for all this while. So politically, there's going to be some score points there that government will earn. Perhaps it is improving on the image of Parliament that is pro-people, and they're interacting with the communities. But I raised this in one of the forums, and I said that for example, the regional parliamentary groupings, you're aware of the regional parliamentary groupings, for example, the Acholi parliamentary group, the West Nile parliamentary groups. And if these regional parliamentary groupings have not put down and come up with a clear agenda and frameworks, prioritize with what they want to achieve out of these sittings, then we will not be able to achieve anything substantial.
One of the things, Dr. Teya, that I listened to today was a motion to thank the Ministry of Defense and Veteran Affairs and President Yoweri Museveni for having ended the war. That Parliament sat in Gulu to thank the Commander-in-Chief and the UPDF for having done their job. I'm wondering, did it have to take Parliament to Gulu to thank? Well, they did a job, yes, that they're supposed to have done, but really, because I think that was the biggest thing today, wasn't it?
Yeah, surely.
And how does that benefit the people of Northern Uganda?
You know, the current state has mastered the art of dress rehearsals. They fit very well. And in classical politics, I don't blame them. Any polity must find ways to seek power, entrench themselves, and sustain power. And you can't fault them on that. If they're doing that and they're able to marshal it, that is okay. The person on the spot is the representative, this parliamentarian we have sent. Because the principle of separation of powers, that doctrine, stemming from the conversation between St. Augustine, Aquinas, Plato, and Socrates, was simple. How do you, in a process of democracy, when you delegate power, how do you hold its efficacy? Because it's one thing to say, I've sent you as a representative, and you've taken the power. So me, who should be on the receiving end, how do I hold that efficacy? And that is the art of the state. That's why you have parliament to check, you have judiciary to arbitrate, and you have the state to do what it does best, which is politics. So the person in the spot here is this parliament. That issue is a no and a no and a no. We simply have a feeble parliament. And I want to tell you, I have no problem with parliament going out, doing these outreaches, because it's within their mandate. And it gives this, good feeling that, parliament is a people's parliament. But for what reason? This parliament is shooting from the hip. We know that. This parliament has left Kampala an afflicted and conflicted parliament. It is so difficult to try and paint what is black white. This parliament is seeking cheap justice from the public gallery, and it won't get it. And for me, I am angry that they are coming to we Northern Uganda. I mean, look at the infrastructure. 40 years.
By the way, are you aware?
40 years. There is no single,
region
the last train
perhaps has the best road network, maybe only second to Bunyoro. I'm sure you know that.
You see, no, listen.
When it comes to roads,
no, listen.
the Acholi region.
Yeah, roads, but going where? Talk about the ecosystem. Because roads, yes. But is it affordable? I want to transport my bags of sim or sunflower. At what cost, at what unit cost am I bringing it to Kampala? And how much am I producing? I started my conversation by telling you, if you cannot be part of the agenda setting, then you are out of it. Don't even try.
If you are against Parliament going to Gulu, you must not be a very popular person in Aswa there, where you come from. They're saying, look at our man. But if they sit there, Mr. Chankara, will they be able to look at the problems in the education system in Acholi sub-region, look at the problems of the health system in Acholi sub-region, tackle the poverty in Acholi sub-region? Because at the end of the day, those are the things that close the people, that education has been, the problem solved, and so is health system, and so is poverty, and things like that. Because if they don't do that, then what will they have done for the people of Northern Uganda?
Our biggest problem is that sometimes we don't understand exactly what we're doing. At the policy level, we say we run a decentralized system of governance. And I can tell you, in an effective decentralized system of government, then the local leadership and the local structures of leadership, right from the village to the district level, should be functional.
If they also, are they generating local resources?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. They should be functional in more of an effective decentralized system. But what we're seeing Parliament going back there, you can't identify the issues that is affecting a full region within 2 days. But in an effective decentralized system, we expect that these informations should come and they should reach Parliament.
I should tell you that committee members of Parliament,
doesn't need the whole entire
have
Parliament
been in Northern Uganda for some time,
yeah,
gathering, listening to people, gathering information, and you know most of the work of Parliament is done at committee level.
Exactly.
So members of the committee have been in Arua, have been in Karamoja, have been in Lango and Acholi.
Yeah.
Listening to the people, getting their views, understanding the situation. So it's not only those 2 days.
We can actually debate then. We should have actually debated from Kampala here, rather than carrying the entire cost
if they had the issues
on government taxpayers, because the issues were there. Ideally, Parliament is Parliament. We debate on these issues, and if we have already received those issues through the parliamentary committees and different channels, let's debate and appropriate. In other words, because even the issues that has been that I saw were being raised in Kampala, if they are not aligned, if they are not in the NDP3, and they are not aligned to the current budget, they cannot be achieved. And so that's a whole total of process that must be achieved. Otherwise, I can tell you without fear of contradiction, is that this, ideally, it is a waste of public resources. Whatever Parliament has gone to do in Gulu, they could have actually done it here if there is real commitment to addressing the issues of Northern Uganda. It doesn't need the entire Parliament going to Gulu.
Do you have a feeling, Dr. Tia, that the members of Parliament could be having a ball in Northern Uganda, somewhere at Churchill Hotel in Kakanyero, actually in Beach, at
this is Christmas come early. This is Christmas come early. This is Christmas come early. You see, Kamara, you know this as much as I do, that you need a piece of legislation, you need a framework of law to be able to achieve certain things. I saw them listening to a myriad of issues, the minister in charge of Northern Uganda, and I'm shocked. This man is a doctor. I thought he would be much more diagnostic. I have taken time. I have been on this northern conflict for the last 25 years, starting as a journalist. I covered the entire Northern War. I know it. To date, I have read Northern Uganda as a case study for my doctoral thesis. If we cannot have a law that kickstarts that transitional justice policy, then we are operating in a vacuum. We have had resolutions. You see, you cannot, these resolutions are passed to different government ministries and all that, and this is the usual thing. I told you the bureaucrat is in the marketplace. All this NUSAF one, I don't know NUSAF, call it anything. What the bureaucrat is simply doing, he goes back and window dresses. One program is simply added 1 or 2 objectives, given another kinked name or sexy name as they call it, and that is it. But the category I'm telling you, the child born in war, let me give you a picture. We, the people of Northern Uganda, both Acholi, Lango, Alur, Logubara, wherever all these conflicts have happened, are tied around clan systems. Yeah. Those clan systems adopt a masculine sense of interpretation in terms of governance, social governance, which means man is the head. That might have its own nuances.
It's the patriarchal nature of all Africa.
My colleague has just mentioned to you the issue of land property, which I just want to give you a case study. A child born by an abducted mother. Remember, by the way, 20,000 or close, approximately 20,000 children were abducted and participated in this war. And that means 20,000 people progressively, out of touch with all processes of life. 2008, here we are today. You find yourself in a home where they're telling you, you cannot inherit land here.
Yeah.
Yeah? In law, the word of the reference to a nephew is okeo.
Yeah.
You are an okeo. You have to go to find your patriliano parentage.
Parent, yeah.
You were born somewhere with respect to these children. Where do they go? If you look for that category in our policies, you don't see it. Look at international legislation and laws relating to displacement. It talks about refugees. The internally displaced are not captured. If you want to leave this country for the next, the international community recognizes you, and they'll find a way of supporting.
Yeah.
Now, those who were displaced, progressively, by 2000, I think by 2002, there were about 440,000 displaced. By 2008, by the time we were getting, 2006, by the time we were going into Operation Iron Fist, 2002, it went up to 800,000. Now, you are talking about production, especially today, and there are nuances. The nuances you have today is climate change. You have the challenge of demography. Averagely, by the way, when they say Ugandans up to 75% are under 25, and maybe 80% are under 16, what is the interpretation? The interpretation is, and more so for Northern Uganda, that 6 or 8 out of 10 households is being led by a young adult or a child in the last 10 years. If you talk to agronomists, they will tell you to complete an acre using a hand hoe, which is still the mainstay, you need at least a minimum of 4 to 6 weeks. The rains are now as short as 2.5 months. So, if you look at the models we are talking about, the 4 acres, 5 acres, can you achieve 4 acres, 5 acres with a hand hoe? You are probably a mother of 16 with no father in the home, because so many young people died in this war. The other thing we have never confronted, we never talk about. Yes, we know the LRA was atrocious. It was criminal. But the LRA participated with other categories of people in this conflict. Where is the discussion about the other? For me as an academic, I can engage in this.
But I'm sure the discussion was there by the time Parliament debates a motion to thank the President and the Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs today. Those are the issues, I'm sure your colleagues, members of Parliament from Northern Uganda.
This one in Gulu?
Yes. How do you debate?
I'll give you a blank check to go to the bank.
But then where are members of Parliament from Northern Uganda? We should be able to say, look, this conflict involved 2 sides. Also find out if there are crimes committed by the other.
You see,
we get to know.
The character, the character of strongmen is that they recruit everybody.
A victor's justice.
Yes.
Yes.
So everybody looks over their shoulder. If we can't get courageous people to speak, look at the border of Alur and Congo, Goli. Every time there's a rain season, nobody can cross that border. No. There are no roads in Alur. I saw Honorable Yume. I was in Koboko Yumbe carrying studies between 2019, 2020. They started working on that road. To date, This is almost coming to 5 years. A stretch not more than 80 kilometers. Where is the accountability, for God's sake, Kamara?
But haven't you seen that a 21-kilometer stretch from Boyogere to Busega has taken 20 years to build? It's called the Northern Bypass, and up to now they are still doing some final touches. And in the heart of Kampala.
Actually, for me,
so welcome to Uganda.
Kamara, I would rather these parliamentarians cut their stay short
and come back.
No, let them go to Maction Falls, look at the animals. Maybe they can come back, and the dividend, the extra dividend, would be to come up with a better tourism legislation.
There's a roof.
Okay, the issue of land is a very emotive and serious question in Uganda, but in Acholi, it's a big deal. Because sometimes when people look at the vast and beautiful, fertile land, to some it is tempting, yeah. But also amongst them there has been a willing seller and a willing buyer, and that seems to continue being a problem in Northern Uganda. Do you think this parliament sitting in Gulu should also have looked into the issue, the land question in Acholi?
Most definitely. I think it has been overdue. This question should have been addressed. In the process of our post-war recovery, Parliament should have paid keen attention to this and develop legislation that really supports the land systems, the community land systems, the customary land systems in the Northern Uganda. I think it has been long overdue. Like I told you earlier, we come from an historical background that the post-war recovery must be able to address, and sort of that we are not able to do it. Now, our land system is customary, yeah, and in other words, we hold the land in trust, okay? We hold it in trust in the context that it has been passed to us from the previous generations, and we are holding it to benefit those that are coming after us, yeah? And if post-war recovery can help the Acholi people or the entire northern region achieve that, at the same time do a progressive development, that should be, it's something that needs close attention, it needs legislation. So if we are serious to protecting Acholi or Northern Uganda and develop Acholi, then we must clearly develop legislations that protect the northern people, but also provide funding. For example, we own this customary land, yeah, and I can tell you without fail, it is usually a huge chunk of land. If you go today and you drive through Gulu or the northern, you will be amazed how the land, but those lands have owners, okay? What this parliament can do that can support the post-war recovery and in any way minimizes the land conflict in Acholi is, let's have the customary land, let's put clear demarcation, and we put money so that all these customary lands are demarcated, so that a neighbor A cannot conflict with a neighbor B. And there is usually a lot of process of dialogue that usually happens between neighbors. But let's put in money
they can
and solve that.
Your land tenure
Otherwise,
system.
today, if you go to Acholi, you will be. That is why we are crying and we're saying, okay, people are invading us. Okay, we look at that as an invasion. Yeah, because I told you earlier that Acholi is a socialist society, and Uganda, by annexion, it is a capitalistic society. Especially here in Buganda, it's more of capitalistic. And when you go to the eastern Uganda, it's largely capitalist. Even historically, we borrow that trade, the Bantu lineage from Kenya and crossing into the Bantu, generally Bantus are largely capitalist, even when you look at Kenya. But Acholi specifically are socialist by nature. They believe so much in the Ubuntu process. It is you are my brother's keeper. That's why in Acholi there are people who would go and visit their relatives, and in the olden days they were given land for free. Please, my brother, farm here. Right?
Gentlemen, hold on to your points because we're going to take a break, and when we come back we shall open the line so that you two at home or wherever you are, you can have your say. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guests tonight are Dr. Tolita Tia and Mr. Bernard Chankara. And we're discussing the regional parliament sittings. We have begun with the sitting in Northern Uganda, and to be precise, in Gulu. This is the moment when you can also have your say. You're going to see the number, telephone number on the screen. Pick your phone and call us and tell us what you think, whether that's going to be good for Uganda or for Northern Uganda in particular, for Parliament to sit there. What are the dividends? You know, Parliament has been in the eye of the storm on matters of corruption, you know. And the other day, young people were protesting again over issues of corruption. Now, 5 billion, we're told, is going to be spent in this Gulu meeting, and another 5 maybe in Mbale, Mbarara, and perhaps in Masaka. At a time when there is no money, we're told. Why? Because medical interns now are not going to be paid because there's no money.
Yeah. And
yet all they need is less than 18 billion, but 20 billion is going to be given to these regional meetings. Some roads construction has stalled totally. For example, I come from Kyenjojo, the road from Mitiana to Mubende. Even the graders have been put off. Why? Because the government is broke. Now, this doesn't look like an austerity measure, does it?
Yeah. It's certainly, I think, like I told in one of the forums before, that our biggest problem in this country is priority. We seem to get our priorities wrong most of the time. And we have not mastered the art of handling little resources, the resource basket that we receive from Ugandans. You may realize that we receive a very low percentage in terms of our revenue to GDP. And many time and again, we keep getting this wrong. Yeah. At this particular time, I think Parliament is in its own wisdom should have actually reflected and said, no, I think there are better priorities that can be done. We can address, given that the committees have been funded, and if you really want to understand the issues of Northern Uganda, you can actually empower these regional groupings or parliamentary groupings. If you feel you really need to listen to the issues of Northern Uganda, there is a Choli parliamentary group, there is Lango parliamentary group, there is West Nile parliamentary group, there is Karamoja parliamentary group. These are they are non-partisan, by the way. It covers the entire parliamentarians from those different regions. If you really wanted to understand those issues, empower the committees, let them do their work, empower the regional, what we call the sort of unclear, those regional parliamentary groups, empower them, let them do the work. You know, so you would use these resources to actually reallocate and support. We have there are quite a number of issues that could have, this money could have supported.
I have been seeing clips of what Tanzania has achieved in the last maybe 8 or 9 years, whether it's standard gauge railway, whether it is electricity, whether there are roads and whatever, and the hospitals. They seem to be way ahead of Uganda. And what was intriguing is that President the late John Pombe Magufuli, in 5 years, he seems to have done so much for his country. If you want to compare the record of the NRM government in 40, and you look at Magufuli in 5, you may think there's a problem in this country, isn't it?
Yes. Just like he says, I think the issue of priorities is important. And I want to link it to one thing. You know, just like in Christianity they say, a human being without a spiritual life or a soul is moving empty. You cannot afford in this day and time, especially in this era of enlightenment, to move alone without the backing of research, study, and academia. There is a complete disconnect between our institutions of higher learning, our research centers, and government, and parliament, and judiciary. Because, let me go back to the issues I saw raised in the parliament. by the minister for Northern Uganda. They are simply symptoms. They are symptomatic. You see, you cannot say people are poor. That is a language for pedestrians. Because poverty is broad, is diverse. Today, poverty has been categorized. There can be education poverty. There is energy poverty. And all sorts of poverty. So what poverty are you talking about? Because if you are categorical, if you are intentional, then your policies will come clear. Because if you say, let's go back to the education, there's a whole myriad of studies, both from professional research think tanks, graduate students. How does this get channeled? How does it find a nexus with the people who are leading this country? And for me, that is where, that's the point of departure. That's where the problem is. Like I said, if you cannot, because Parliament legislates for the country, you cannot have Parliament of Uganda separately want to legislate and talk for Northern Uganda. It needs to talk about Uganda as a whole. So, how does Northern Uganda find gravity with the rest of this country? It can only find it through dedicated policies to Northern Uganda. And post-conflict, the only vehicle we have left is the transitional justice policy and processes. The first thing that should have happened in the sitting yesterday with my agenda question is that they should have been discussing how to bring a law to enable or kickstart the transitional justice policy that they adopted. And by the way, it's a very rich policy because there are about 4 things in that policy. One is the issue of compensation. The only compensation we talk about is cattle. Yeah. But there's also compensation of human rights crimes. Yeah. There are some things we cannot talk about.
So first of all, when you talk about compensation of human rights crimes, then there should be somebody who is going to accept that he committed those crimes.
And that's the point I want to come to. Because you see, in governance, these 2 things matter a lot. One, the attitude of the bureaucrat and the attitude of the politicians. To date, one of the biggest challenges for Northern Uganda is that we have not reached a consensus on how to situate these problems.
So just hold on your point. Let me try to engage other Ugandans because I understand they've been trying to reach us online. I have a call online. Hello.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Kamara.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Godfrey.
Yes, sir.
I'm calling from Busheng.
Right, go right ahead, sir.
I want to thank with the gentleman in the studio.
Yes, sir.
First of all, Mr. Kamara, I have lived in Northern Uganda for 10 years. And I know all these areas. I've seen people suffer. I've seen a hopeless that is living hopeless. You see a big number of young men who have turned into border cycles. First, Kamara.
Isn't border? Are you also not even talking about Kampala? Uganda is a border economy, isn't it?
Yes, that's okay. That's understandable, Kamara. But you see, the 5 years these people of Northern Uganda went through were very painful. When you see the people of Northern Uganda and the leaders, you see previously they had the Odonga Otos, the Regan Okumu, the Fungaros in the West Nile, Ogenga Latigo and the rest. And these were people who represented these people. But recently in 2021, they removed all the opposition who were speaking. Let me tell you, Kamara, that the NRM...
But the people voted. They voted them out for a reason.
You see, the people of...
They broke up with them, bro.
My brother, the people of Northern Uganda had the voice. If you look at NRM this term, they have not performed, Mr. Kamara. They have not performed. The roads, the schools, the hospital. Tell me anything like an NRM has been speaking out to represent these people. Now, to keep it short, my brother Kamara, the most suffering people in Northern Uganda are the ones supporting NRM, and they are the people who are suffering most, my brother. So I see the pain in that PhD candidate, and it is very painful that you keep voting the same people who are keeping you impoverished and miserable. I thank you, Mr. Kamara.
Thank you very much. Our caller from Bushenyi there. And you know, Bushenyi always minded about what is good for Bushenyi. They never mind from way back, whether it's Obote or it is Museveni, what is it good for Bushenyi. Somehow, those people in Bushenyi were very unique. Well, somebody understands the cries of North. Let me take. Yes, let me just speak one more caller. I have another call online. Hello. Hello. Yes, you are online. Hello. Okay. It looks like you are listening to yourself, but you had given an opportunity to express yourself, and this is the moment when you can have your say, and you have seen the numbers on the screen. You can call us. Let me just take one more caller. Hello?
Hello.
Yes.
Hello,
Good evening. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Mukono.
Your name, sir?
My name is Mwes Aiva.
Go right ahead.
Yes, Mr. Patrick, I want to thank your guests. Hello?
Yes, you're on air, sir. Go right ahead.
Yes, Mr. Patrick, I want to thank your guests for the brilliant discussion. Meanwhile, I want to echo my voice, or according to the program. It is really not understandable for us people on the ground in terms of parliament moving region, because it cannot really address our problems, more especially to people us on the ground. Because if you hear these people, the way they discuss it, people are going to make business, and which category of people are going to make business out of these MPs? These are the people who have made hotels. These are the people who have established businesses like petrol stations. They are the only people who are going to benefit for these 3 days. And then, how about this local person on the ground? What is it left for him or her at the end of the day? It is what we want. Thank you, Mr. Patrick.
Thank you very much. Okay. Okay, in the interest of time also, I'm going to be giving you your time so that you can make your concluding arguments. Let me begin with you, Mr. Shankara. My producer is telling me quite a number of people would want to give their views. Okay, let me take one more caller. Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. What's your name and where are you calling from?
This is Poka John from Ngulu.
Okay, yes. John from Ngulu.
Yes, in fact, for us, we have suffered up to date. We cannot take our children to school. So we are just waiting for post-Museveni regimes to celebrate. There's nothing we're getting. So that's all.
Okay. It was that precise and concise. Okay. Yes, Shankara, what's going to be your parting shot?
I think because the regional parliament, the regional sitting has already been passed by parliament, and they're going to go on to all different regions. Now that it is already on motion, it is still not too late for parliament to rethink its approach. Yeah. One, there must be a rethink of how to engage the local communities. If you go with the traditional or the normal processes of parliamentary proceedings, then you will not achieve. You probably will, you'll score politically, but the real output that the Ugandans expected, or the Ugandans expect from this regional parliament will not be achieved. And if anything is to come out of these regional sittings, then I think it is extremely important that a committee be formed to make close follow-up on all these resolutions that Parliament are going to come out. Otherwise, it will get lost.
We are very good at making those committees, be sure.
Because that's the only way we can follow them. Otherwise, a minister for energy or a minister for agriculture standing up and making a statement and saying we are going to do this, we are going to do this, it's just a mere talk. Yeah? Without concrete follow-up, this is a real waste of public resources. And if anything is to come out of this, we must form committees and we must task them periodically and say, okay, maybe after 2 weeks, after a month, what are the output? And in any case, I know this parliament very well. They don't have the capacity. It is just a mere talk, and it is a mere, it's a mere show, ideally.
Dr. Salit.
Yeah, thank you, Kamara. These are my parting shots. Government needs to rethink its approach post-conflict. One, government committed itself to the Juba Peace Agreement. They said even without Joseph Kony's signature, they were going to implement it. I think the only opportunity for them to do that is through the transitional justice policy and processes. In that, we are going to see the 3 areas that are very key to the people of Northern Uganda. That is reinstation, reintegration, and the compensations. And you see, the compensations do not only have to stick and remain within the realm of those whose cattle were taken. I told you they are compensations of human rights nature. You say a lot of money has gone into Northern Uganda. It is true, but most of it is money from international agencies and aids. This is our government. We need to see some tangible commitment. We need to see change of political attitude towards Northern Uganda and the broad Northern Uganda, right from sections of Bunyoro that hosted and were benevolent to the people of Northern Uganda who were displaced, that are even hosting up to today children born in war who don't have homes. And by the way, there are people who are homeless. Those 2 categories, those new categories of community need to be handled. The root basis on how and the framework that exists to handle them is also the element of reconciliation. Remember, the main conflict ended, but now what we have are micro and intra conflicts arising from competition on land,
on the scarce resources,
on poverty.
All right.
So if we can have money, thoughts, ideas put into that, I think I would like to see a government that is more willing than working with some of us in these research and think tanks. We are generating a lot of information and knowledge. Where do we take it? We are stuck with it.
All right. Dr. Tolito Atia, thank you so much, sir, for your submission. Mr. Bernard Jankara, I want to thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time you've taken and also for the submission. I can feel the passion that you have for Uganda, but also the passion for Northern Uganda. I hope that when the members of parliament are in Gulu, it's not going to be business as usual. I hope the challenges they have met in Kampala will be solved in Gulu so that the people of Gulu can have dividends for the parliament sitting in their area. I hope they will leave Gulu better than they found it. Afoy Matek. Good night and God bless Uganda.